She had just returned from her luxurious 2-week getaway in the Maldives, something she called a well-earned break. Monica flopped into the passenger seat with a dramatic sigh, like riding with me was somehow beneath her. And then, not even a minute after we hit the highway, she casually dropped the bomb, as smooth and smug as a con artist with a confession. "Your credit card saved the day for my $65,000 dream vacation," she said, like she was complimenting the weather. Just like that. No build-up. No warning. Nothing. I stayed locked in. Kept my eyes on the road. Not a twitch, not a word. I didn't give her the satisfaction. But my grip on the wheel tightened. My knuckles went pale. The world outside became a blur, sound faded like I'd been dunked underwater. All I could hear was my pulse thundering in my ears. $70,000. And still, I didn't say a word. Because if I had opened my mouth, it would have come out as a war cry. And Monica? She fed on conflict like a parasite feeds on blood, always the victim, always the one hurt. I had figured her out by now. Silence shook her more than shouting ever could. She filled the quiet with stories. About the ocean view bungalow, the Swedish masseur named Lars, the accidental extras like scuba diving lessons and diamond-studded anklets, of all things. When we got back to the house, I carried her 4 Louis Vuitton bags inside. Each one probably cost more than my monthly rent. And she walked through the front door like she still ran the show. Sloane was there, all smiles and hugs, but her eyes met mine, searching for something. I didn't give her anything but a steady nod. That was her first sign. The storm was coming. 2 nights later, I sat down with the credit card statements. Line by line, there it was. Resort. Spa. First-class flights. Jewelry. But here's the twist, the card she used? It wasn't mine. Not anymore. Months earlier, after being treated like an open wallet one too many times, I had shut down every single card in my name. Every last one. What Monica had was a decoy. A burner card, flagged and monitored, something I kept active for one reason only, to catch her. See, I'd started noticing a pattern. Vacations, emergencies, all conveniently when I wasn't around. So I laid a trap. And the second she swiped that card overseas, it pinged. Loud and clear. Did I shut it down? No. I let her run wild with it. Because sometimes the only way to expose a leech is to let it think it's safe. The week after she came back, my phone started lighting up. 1 call. 2. Then 10. All Monica. By the 35th call, I hit block. By the 60th, I killed voicemail. By the 100th, I sat on the porch with my coffee, soaking in the sunrise like a man who just hit the jackpot. Because the card she'd burned through like dry timber? It had already been marked as fraudulent. And let me tell you, watching someone flip from arrogant to terrified in real time is a beautiful thing. Like watching dark clouds roll in over a beach party. Fast. Cold. Deserved. Her calls stopped all at once, like the panic finally silenced whatever mask she was clinging to. I imagined her sitting there, confused, wondering why the guy she thought she controlled had suddenly gone radio silent. 2 full days passed. Nothing. Then came a knock. At the door stood Sloane, dressed sharp, perfume heavy, wearing that fake calm face she used when trying to steer the conversation before it began. No greeting. No pleasantries. Why did you block my mom? I leaned on the doorframe, arms folded. She didn't tell you? Sloane blinked. Tell me what? She used a credit card that wasn't hers, I said, slow and clear. Spent 70 grand overseas. I figured that might be worth a family chat. Her face lost color. First real emotion I'd seen on her in ages. Her eyes darted left, right, like she was trying to read the room for an exit. Eventually, her brain caught up. She stammered, wait, she said you gave her permission. Did I? I asked, letting it hang there. She said you offered to cover it as a thank you for helping with that loan last year. Ah, yes. That infamous 10 grand loan. The one I floated to help pay off her mother's condo tax lien. Said she'd repay it in a month. Never saw a dime. Funny, I said. Because that card? It wasn't tied to our accounts. Wasn't even under my name. Her brow creased. Then, whose was it? It was under a legal trust, I replied. Emergency tracking. Insurance purposes. I let that marinate before adding, and now? It's in the hands of a fraud investigation team. They flagged it after her 3rd Maldives transaction. Turns out the resort staff had suspicions of their own. Something about Monica trying to flirt her way into a free penthouse suite. And that, my friend, was just the beginning. Turns out she'd been making a scene at the resort, harassing employees, trying to pay with expired vouchers from a jewelry store like they were valid currency. I couldn't help but crack a slow smile. She'd left behind a trail of receipts longer than a CVS scroll. Right then, Sloane's phone started buzzing nonstop. I didn't have to guess. It was Monica. Who else could it be? She's in trouble, isn't she? Sloane asked, and for once, her voice didn't have that sharp edge. Just a quiet hint of worry. She's under investigation, I said, calm as ever. And because the card was issued under a limited liability clause, every cent she spent was now legally pinned on her. No loopholes. No excuses. Sloane looked at me like I was a stranger, like I'd shape-shifted right in front of her. But the truth? I hadn't changed at all. She was just finally seeing the part of me that never stopped watching. You set her up, she whispered. No, I replied, steady and low. I gave her rope. She tied her own noose. Sloane didn't say another word. Just walked away in silence, not the kind that ends a fight, but the kind that says, I'm cornered and I might still lie later if I think I can get away with it. Sure enough, 2 nights later, she came back with a whole new storyline, a desperate attempt to spin guilt into sympathy. She didn't mean to, Sloane insisted. She just thought. She thought you'd be okay with it, she added softly, because you love me. And there it was, affection weaponized. Polished up to be used like a shield. I did love you, I said, but that was before I realized you and your mother share the same illness, entitlement without a shred of responsibility. She looked stunned, like the words physically slapped her. You're really going to let her get charged? She charged herself, I said plainly. All I did was stop sweeping up her mess. That night, my lawyer called. Monica had the audacity to try and fight the charges. Claimed it was all just one big misunderstanding. Said the credit card was a gift. The bank didn't buy it for a second. The records were airtight, every charge accounted for, every receipt signed, every moment captured on camera with timestamps to match. It was the kind of evidence that doesn't just talk in court, it roars. And here's the part Monica didn't see coming, her stunt triggered a financial audit. The IRS took notice. And guess what? She hadn't filed taxes in 4 years. That Maldives trip? Just a footnote now. The least of her problems. Funny thing about people like Monica, they live off technicalities, thinking they're clever. Never realized someone could turn that loophole into a noose. Sloane thought the nightmare had hit its peak. That her mom had finally been caught. That someone else would take the fall for once. So, she did what she always did, pivoted. Became the hurt daughter. Played both sides like a tired stage actress still clinging to her role. She curled up beside me that night, whispering, I didn't know she used that card, babe. If I had, I would have stopped her. Yeah, right? People who lie for a living start to think they're experts. They forget other people have memories, too, memories of every strange excuse, every late-night meeting, every piece that never fit. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. That had burned off long ago, replaced by something sharper. Precision. While she wrapped herself around me like betrayal in silk, I was already planning my next move. My thoughts raced. Every odd purchase. Every shady excuse. Every work dinner over the past 2 years. It was all starting to click. So, the next morning after she left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and her laptop. Password? Our anniversary. Pathetic. Didn't take long. Her inbox was a mess. Promotions, spam, boring office stuff, and then I typed in one word. Reservation. And just like that, the dam broke. Dinner bookings for 2. Hotel confirmations. Bills from upscale restaurants I'd never even heard of, let alone dined at. All under her name. All charged to a corporate card her company never issued. Then came the name. Derek. Same guy. Over and over. The emails started off dry, businesslike. But they didn't stay that way. Thanks for last night. You looked amazing. That thing you do with your hair drives me wild. Same suite next weekend? There were photos too. Nothing explicit, but more than enough. A wine glass in her hand. A man's fingers barely in frame. A bathroom selfie with a belt hanging behind her, one that sure as hell wasn't mine. It was like peeling back fresh paint and finding rot underneath. She'd been hiding behind a polished smile and perfume. But the truth had always been there, just waiting to be seen. And right then, I could have confronted her. Could have screamed, thrown the receipts in her face, made a scene she wouldn't forget. But why? You don't hand them a meltdown they can twist into your instability. You don't give them chaos to hide in. You give them strategy. You play the long game. That's when I launched a new mission. I called it the exit file. Quietly, methodically, I began collecting everything. Timestamps, receipts, IP logs. I wasn't just documenting betrayal. I was building a case. I matched hotel bookings to the nights she claimed she had to work late. I made a spreadsheet, color-coded, categorized. undeniable. This wasn't just preparation for a divorce. This was a forensic audit. That house we shared? I covered the down payment, the mortgage, the taxes. My name was the only one on that deed. Her car? Financed under my signature. And that cute little business she co-owned with her yoga friends? Half the startup cash came straight out of my savings. I wasn't planning to walk away with just my pride intact. I was leaving with the truth, with proof, and with enough leverage to end the guessing game forever. Because cheaters, they expect chaos. They're used to screaming, broken dishes, tearful confrontations followed by empty threats of working through it. What rattles them? Strategy. Silence. A man who stops reacting and starts calculating. Sloane? She was about to feel the shift. The thing liars fear more than exposure? Control. They can twist emotions, rewrite timelines, spin sob stories. But what they can't handle is a steady voice and a stare that doesn't blink. So I gave her normalcy, just enough to keep her guessing. A week later, I told Sloane I wanted to host a small dinner. Casual. Just us and a potential business partner I'd been meaning to connect with for a while. Her eyes narrowed, like she was sniffing for hidden motives. But I smiled warm and easy, played the role she always fell for, the calm, trusting man she assumed still belonged to her. She let her guard down. Barely. I think it's great, she said, her manicured fingers brushing mine across the table. It's nice seeing you back to yourself. After all the stress with Mom. Stress. That's what she called a $70,000 fraud and a criminal investigation. Stress. I nodded. Exactly. Time to move forward. When dinner night came, I set the stage perfectly. Cooked her favorite, pan-seared scallops in white wine butter sauce, asparagus roasted just right, and mashed potatoes with roasted garlic. I lit candles, put on the watch she gave me for our anniversary. A shiny little lie wrapped in sentimental wrapping. She wore red. That red dress. She thought our guest was Derek. And she thought I was clueless. So when the doorbell rang, I caught that flicker. That brief tremble of nerves mixed with a little excitement. She wiped her hands on her dress, cleared her throat, and answered the door. But it wasn't Derek. It was Rachel, HR rep at Derek's company, and also his wife. Hey, she said smoothly, stepping through the door like she owned it. Hope you don't mind, I brought wine. Sloane blinked. Oh, you're the guest? That's right, I said, strolling in behind them. Rachel and I connected through a contact at the bank. Crazy small world. Sloane turned to me, tight-lipped, eyes darting, trying to piece it all together like a puzzle with jagged edges. We sat down at the table. At first, it was all smiles and surface talk. Weather, travel, work. You'd think we were four old friends catching up. But tension hung over the table like a storm cloud waiting for the first crack of lightning. Then Rachel leaned forward, her tone sweet, her words poisonous. So, she asked Sloane, how long have you known my husband? Sloane froze, wine halfway to her lips. She put the glass down, a little too fast. I think we've met once or twice, she stammered, glancing at me for backup. None came. Rachel smiled politely. Interesting. He talks about you a lot. Says you're enthusiastic. Silence fell like a dropped plate. I'm not sure what this is, Sloane muttered, her voice cracking slightly. Oh, don't be shy, Rachel said, reaching into her purse. He accidentally forwarded this to me last week. Figured it was meant for you. She slid a photograph across the table. There it was. A hotel mirror selfie. Sloane front and center, Derek shirtless behind her. Arms around her like they were posing for a twisted holiday card. Timestamp clear as day. Sloane went pale. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out. I took a slow sip of my wine. Looks like quite the networking event, I said dryly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You set me up. I shook my head, steady as ever. No, you did that on your own. I just made dinner. Rachel stood, dusted off her hands. Well, she said, turning to me. Thank you for the lovely meal. I'll be in touch. Absolutely, I replied, walking her to the door. When I came back, Sloane hadn't moved. She sat there, glassy-eyed, hands shaking. I can explain, she started. I lifted my hand. Calm. Measured. No need. I'm past explanations. Tears welled. Her voice cracked. So, what now? I gave her the coldest smile I've ever worn. Now? I said softly. Now the fun begins. You see, most men walk into marriage thinking it's a promise. I didn't. I walked in like I was signing a contract. Maybe on some level I always knew. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it came from growing up watching good men get eaten alive by women who smiled with perfect teeth and fed on entitlement like it was a 5-course meal. Either way, I built safety nets into everything. And Sloane? She never spotted a single one. After that dinner ambush, the atmosphere at home turned ice cold. She floated around the house like a ghost, stunned, unsure how she ended up on the wrong side of the script. Now she was in the dark. And me? I was playing a role she didn't recognize. I wasn't angry. I wasn't wounded. I was precise. Still. Focused. I wasn't the hurt husband anymore. I was the man delivering judgment. Let's rewind a bit. Back when we got married, I made sure the house stayed in my name. Said it was for credit reasons. She sulked a little, but I fed her some sweet talk about a beach house someday with both our names on it. That was the distraction. Classic misdirection, magician's sleight of hand. Same deal with the cars. Hers? Leased under a corporate entity I owned before we ever met. A little shell company she didn't even know existed. The only thing in her name? A Target credit card and maybe a Nordstrom account, both usually overdue. But the crown jewel? That was the LLC. About a year into our marriage, when I noticed her more interested in solo wellness retreats than anything that resembled us, I formed a limited liability company in my name only. Quiet. Clean. Strategic. Then I transferred some key assets into it, savings, stocks, even our emergency fund, which I renamed Operational Capital. Just a little branding shift to keep things neat. Had my lawyer draw up all the paperwork airtight. And here's the kicker, Sloane signed off on half of it during a sushi date. I handed her a stack of documents between bites of spicy tuna, told her it was just estate planning. She smiled, signed, and sipped her wine. Betrayed herself mid-bite. So after our little dinner disaster, while she sulked around waiting for me to break, I moved. First move? Froze the joint accounts. Every card. Every shared line of credit. Then I met with my lawyer. We began the formal separation. Not divorce. Not yet. Divorce is quick. Too clean. What I wanted wasn't escape. It was reveal. Next, I swung by the leasing office where her so-called consulting business rented space. Walked in casual. Met a kind receptionist, Kayla. We got to chatting. She let it slip that Sloane hadn't set foot in that office for over 2.5 months. But Derek? Oh, Derek was there. Regularly. Apparently, he used the space for client calls. Judging by the tone, the only business happening in there was strictly after hours. I thanked Kayla. Slid her a little something for her discretion. Walked out with camera footage and a guest log in my pocket. Now I had receipts. Not suspicion proof. But I wasn't done. I hired a private investigator. Not because I needed more dirt, I already had enough to bury a career. But I wanted an independent party. Someone credible. Someone who could testify in court and say, yes, I saw her enter that hotel with another man. 6 weeks straight. She didn't know any of this. Until her card got declined at a spa appointment. She came home furious, storming in like a hurricane in heels. What the hell is going on? She snapped, tossing her bag on the couch. My account's frozen. Correction, I said, not even glancing up from my laptop. Our account. And yeah, it is. Her jaw hit the floor. You can't do that. Oh, but I did, I replied. If you need cash, maybe Derek can front you. Assuming he hasn't maxed out his visa at roadside motels. She stared at me like I just sprouted horns. That's when I slid a manila envelope across the table. Calm. Clean. She opened it. Inside? The PI's report. Photographs. Hotel logs. Names. Times. Plus a copy of the lease. The LLC structure. And, most importantly, her signature on everything. She didn't say a word. Didn't need to. That was the moment it sank in. She hadn't just lost an argument. She'd lost her entire position. But Sloane had always prided herself on appearances. She was a cause-driven woman, remember? A so-called philanthropist. A woman of image and elegance. So when the night of her beloved charity gala came around, she thought it might salvage things. Help us recenter, as she put it. She even asked if I'd walk in with her for optics. What she didn't realize. That microphone? It wasn't being handed to her. It was mine. I stepped up to the podium, voice steady, smile thin. The sound of clinking wine glasses dimmed beneath my words. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, we're here not just to support a cause tonight, but to understand what it really means, to expose the truth. Sloane froze mid-stride, one foot dangling in disbelief. See, I said, keeping my tone calm and crisp, exposure isn't just about giving to charity. It's about telling the truth. About what we're willing to bring into the light and what we desperately try to bury beneath polished smiles and overpriced gowns. Somewhere in the back of the room, someone chuckled nervously, the kind of awkward sound people make when they sense the air's shifted but don't yet know how or why. I didn't pause. In the spirit of transparency, I continued, I want to thank someone tonight. Someone who taught me that betrayal doesn't always come crashing through the front door. Sometimes it walks in wearing stilettos and plans fundraisers. The silence now? You could have bottled it. Tense. Heavy. I reached into my coat and pulled out a sleek black folder, holding it up for the crowd. And I'd like to take this moment to announce a new contribution. A $200,000 donation to the Foundation for Financial Justice, a program that provides legal assistance to individuals trying to escape financially coercive relationships. I didn't have to look her way to feel the shock radiating off her. But I did anyway. Sloane was locked in place, jaw clenched so tightly I half expected to hear her teeth crack under the pressure. And one more thing, I added, slow and deliberate. That donation? It's being made in honor of the woman who inspired it.